What's most concerning about going up against Iowa State's defense?
Really just the number of snaps they've all played. When you start looking at all their starters, some of them have been 3-year starters or even more. I mean, you start looking at Rose, how many games he's played. You start looking at their back end as a whole. They have really 5 DBs that all have got a lot of playing time.
What about that linebacking crew? What jumps out at you with them?
Well, 2 things. One, they really understand where they fit in the run game stuff, so that's why they're so good at playing the run. But just disrupting routes, they don't make them play a whole bunch of man coverage, but they do a great job disrupting and trying to knock people off, and then let the 5 DBs cover everybody on down the field. But they're going to try to disrupt them and knock them off their path.
The way that Skyler played, not running around as much against Oklahoma, do you kind of encourage him to sit back in the pocket a little more?
I thought the best thing he did was more buy time by sliding up in the pocket rather than buying time by breaking the pocket. And I'm all in for that because he was able to really find checkdowns. Now, it happened to be Deuce a bunch, but he also was able to come off to his next wide out. At least one of the throws he had to Landry was really coming down to a second and third option. And he's got a strong enough arm that if we can give him a little bit of time and if he can slide in the pocket and throw it around, I'm fired up about that.
What's an ideal number of QB rushes you'd like in games moving forward after seeing that?
I think it'll depend a little bit. That depends every week a little bit by how the defense is going to try to stop some of the read game stuff that we do. Meaning, we're generally not going to run a whole bunch of stuff where Skyler's just specifically keeping it unless it's on the goal line and maybe we run an option play. But for the most part, it depends a little bit more on if we're running kind of the fly sweep stuff. He's going to keep it depending on how they defend it. So it's hard for me to know going into each week whether or not he's going to keep it 5 times or he's going to keep it 1 or 10.
Out of curiosity, how hard was it to break Skyler's habit of kind of bleeding to the right?
I think it was more out of necessity that he decided on his own. I mean, we've always talked about, let the O-line and how they're blocking the front dictate where you slide in the pocket and whether you're breaking left or breaking right. A lot of right-handed quarterbacks have a tendency to break to their right all the time. The guy that we just played 2 weeks ago was very well known that he generally scrambles to his right. From my standpoint, if we can keep him in the pocket and get it out of his hand, that's what we really want to do.
Does this game have any extra significance to you, being that you coach?
I'd have said 2-3 games ago, yes, but now they're a very, very good football program and good team, and everybody in this league is. So our need to make sure we're prepared is really the same every week.
What's it take to get Malik Knowles going in downfield action?
I think he's got to be able to win in some of the one-on-one opportunities he's going to have, and they're going to play. I mean, everybody knows that they stop the run pretty darn well, partly because they're going to have 7 or 8, 9 DBs or 9 guys in the box. That means some of the DBs. So he's going to have some one-on-one opportunities. He just needs to be able to win one-on-one against their corners. And their corners, I think one of their corners has maybe had upwards towards 30 starts, something of that nature. So they've played a lot of football.
Daniel was on a pitch count against Oklahoma last Saturday. Do you expect him to be back?
Yeah, I think he'll play. I mean, we still always try to use our personnel the best we can, but he won't be limited as far as the number that, if he ended up playing 35, 40 snaps, it's not like I would be saying, well, wait a minute, he's at 15. We need to watch him. Be much more now. He's just full go.
Coach Kleiman had mentioned that Tyrone Howell was one of the guys that had a pretty nice bye week. Just what have you seen from him?
Well, I thought 2 things. His ability to get in and out of the huddle and truly be now worrying about the defense got much better. Meaning the first 5 weeks, obviously you had fall camp, but his true understanding of hearing a huddle call, getting to that line of scrimmage and being able to play fast without having to think about what our offense is and now just worry about the defense, that's really what was the best that I saw from the bye week.
Were there any other players on your side of the ball that you felt the bye week did wonders for as well?
Well, I always feel like the younger guys, using a Ben Sennett as an example, it's going to help them. I feel like from the O-line standpoint, even though you'd say Cooper Beebe's an old guy now and has played a lot of football, but you know, him getting one, a little bit of downtime, but then two, some live reps against our defense helps him. All of those guys would be in that same boat. All of those younger, even though they're starters, those younger guys that haven't played a ton.
I know you analyze everything, Madison. You look at their defense, their top 11 in the 4 major defensive categories.
Yeah.
When you break it down, just what makes them so good defensively?
Well, yeah, as I said, how the number of total snaps that they've all played and played together. You know, as an example, the safeties and the outside linebackers, their ability to verbally and or non-verbally communicate and know where one's going to be, where one's going to fit a pass concept is really good when you watch it. Now, that being said, we've got to make sure we take advantage then of some of the times where we know they're going to flat foot. In other words, we know the safety's maybe not going to back up as much because he feels like, hey, they're going to get pressure, they're going to make it get out of our hand, it's 3rd and 4. So when can we try to take advantage of somebody squatting at 8, 9, 10 yards and try to go get a shot play? And we have to, you know, just as we have in some of our, you know, Stanford as an example, the first couple drives, the ability to get big plays off play action, we've got to be able to do that.
We've had a few players uncharacteristically fumble this season. When that happens, as a coaching staff, how do you handle that with each individual player?
Well, each individual player is different a little bit, but for the most part, we don't want to harp on it that the fumble happened. We want to harp on back to our fundamentals, back on how do we grip it, how do we, you know, is it when you're evaluating the person carrying the ball, is it high and tight? Are they doing everything they can, getting it in the correct arm, and then carrying it the correct way? But harping on a fumble or harping on interceptions, it's more harp on the nuances of how you do things correctly more than the specific that it was a fumble or it was a turnover in general.
Is there much that you can take from last year's game just based on how it went?
You know, throw the score out. We got to go back and just look defensively, or how they played defensively, how they played as individuals, and then conceptually how they played, because they're basically going to play the same style of defense, whether it's this year or 3 years ago when you watch them.
From appearance sake, what does Skyler look like now, today versus 2 weeks ago?
Oh, I think he's more and more comfortable with his injury and being able to play with it. And I think every day he's more and more as though nothing ever happened to him. And that's great for us. The more he can play without thinking about whether or not he feels good, doesn't feel good, every day that he's back and feeling like, hey, it's just a normal day, it's that much better for us. And I think he's closer to that.
Do you still ever think about, you know, getting Will in there for any runs like
Well,
you mentioned earlier in the season?
Well, we will have the mindset of if it becomes a big quarterback run game, and you know, use an easy example of you're down in the red zone and you feel like, hey, you have to have that 11th element, that 11th guy, then Will's always going to be up and ready and be ready to go.